Treaty with the Chippewa of Saginaw, Swan Creek, and Black River. October 18, 1864, ratified May 22, 1866. Articles of Agreement and Convention made and concluded at the Isabella Indian Reservation in the state of Michigan on the 18th day of October in the year 1864 between H. J. Alvord, Special Commissioner of the U.S., and D.C. Leach, U.S. Indian Agent, acting as commissioners for and on the part of the U.S. and the Chippewas of Saginaw, Swan Creek, and Black River in the state of Michigan, aforesaid parties to the Treaty of August 2, 1855, as follows, viz. Article 1. The said Chippewas of Saginaw, Swan Creek, and Black River, for and in consideration of the conditions hereinafter specified, do hereby release to the U.S. the several townships of land reserved to said tribe by said treaty aforesaid, situate and being upon Saginaw Bay in said state. The said Indians also agree to relinquish to the U.S. all claim to any right they may possess to locate lands in lieu of land sold or disposed of by the U.S. upon their reservation at Isabella, and also the right to purchase the unselected lands in said reservation as provided for in the first article of said treaty. Article 2. In consideration of the foregoing relinquishments, the U.S. hereby agree to set apart for the exclusive use, ownership, and occupancy of the said Chippewa of Saginaw, Swan Creek, and Black River all of the unsold lands within the 6 townships in Isabella County, reserved to said Indians by the Treaty of August 2, 1855, aforesaid, and designated as follows, viz. The north half of Township 14 and Townships 15 and 16 north of Range 3 west, the north half of Township 14 and Township 15 north of Range 4 west, and Townships 14 and 15 north and Range 5 west. Article 3. So soon as practicable after the ratification of this treaty, the persons who have heretofore made selections of land within the townships upon Saginaw Bay, hereby relinquished, may proceed to make selections of lands upon the Isabella Reservation in lieu of their selections aforesaid, and in like quantities. After a reasonable time shall have been given for the parties aforesaid to make their selections in lieu of those relinquished, the other persons entitled thereto may then proceed to make their selections in quantities as follows, viz. For each chief of said Indians who signs this treaty, 80 acres in addition to their selections already made, and to patents in fee simple for one head man in each band, into which said Indians are now divided, 40 acres, and to patents in fee simple. For each person being the head of a family, 80 acres. For each single person over the age of 21 years, 40 acres. For each orphan child under the age of 21 years, 40 acres. For each married female who has not heretofore made a selection of land, 40 acres. And for each person now living or who may be born hereafter when he or she shall have arrived at the age of 21 years, 40 acres, so long as any of the lands in said reserve shall remain unselected and no longer. In consideration of important services rendered to said Indians during many years past by William Smith, John Collins, first Andrew J. Campo, and Thomas Chatfield, it is hereby agreed that they shall each be allowed to select 80 acres in addition to their previous selections, and receive patents therefor in fee simple, and to Charles H. Rod 80 acres, and a patent therefor in fee simple, to be received by said Rod as a full consideration and payment of all claims he may have against said Indians, except claims against individuals for services rendered or money expended heretofore by said Rod for the benefit of said Indian. It is understood and agreed that those Ottawas and Chippewas and Ottawattamies now belonging to the bounds of which Mateo make, me Mishakade, Kichikebe Mimose, and Wapamang Webi Ingan are chiefs who have heretofore made selections upon said reservations, by permission of said Chippewas of Saginaw, Swan Creek, and Black River, who now reside upon said reservation in Isabella County, or who may remove to said reservation within 1 year after the ratification of this treaty, shall be entitled to the same rights and privileges to select and hold land as are contained in the third article of this agreement. So soon as practicable after the ratification of this treaty, the agent for the said Indians shall make out a list of all those persons who have heretofore made selections of lands under the Treaty of August 2, 1855 aforesaid, and of those who may be entitled to selections under the provisions of said list into 2 classes, viz. Competent and those not so competent. Those who are intelligent and have sufficient education and are qualified by business habits to prudently manage their affairs shall be set down as competent, and those who are uneducated or unqualified in other respects to prudently manage their affairs, or who are of idle, wandering, or dissolute habits, and all orphans shall be set down as those not so competent. The U.S. agrees to issue patents to all persons entitled to selections under this treaty as follows, viz. To those belonging to the class denominated competents, patents shall be issued in fee simple, but to those belonging to the class of those not so competent, the patent shall contain a provision that the land shall never be sold or alienated to any person or persons whomsoever, without the consent of the Secretary of Interior for the time being. Article 4. The U.S. agrees to expend the sum of $20,000 for the support and maintenance of a manual labor school upon said reservation, provided that the Missionary Society of the Methodist Episcopal Church shall, within 3 years after the ratification of this treaty, at its own expense, erect suitable buildings for school and boarding house purposes of a value of not less than $3,000 upon the southeast quarter of Section 9, Township 14 North of Range 4 West, which is hereby set apart for that purpose. The Superintendent of Public Instruction, the Lieutenant Governor of the State of Michigan, and one person to be designated by said missionary society shall constitute a board of visitors whose duty it shall be to visit said school once during each year, and examine the same and investigate the character and qualifications of its teachers and all other persons connected therewith, and report thereon to the Commissioner of Indian Affairs. The said Missionary Society of the Methodist Episcopal Church shall have full and undisputed control of the management of said school and the farm attached thereto. Upon the approval and acceptance of the school and boarding house buildings by the Board of Visitors, the U.S. will pay to the authorized agent of said Missionary Society for the support and maintenance of the school the sum of $2,000 and a like sum annually thereafter until the whole sum of $20,000 shall have been expended. The U.S. reserves the right to suspend the annual appropriation of $2,000 for said school in part or in whole whenever it shall appear that said missionary society neglects or fails to manage the affairs of said school and farm in a manner acceptable to the Board of Visitors aforesaid, and if at any time within a period of 10 years after the establishment of said school, said missionary society shall abandon said school or farm for the purposes intended in this treaty, then and in such case said society shall forfeit all of its rights in the lands, buildings, and franchises under this treaty. And it shall be competent for the Secretary of Interior to sell or dispose of the land hereinbefore designated, together with the buildings and improvements thereon, and expend the proceeds of the same for the educational interests of Indians in such manner as he may deem advisable. At the expiration of 10 years after the establishment of said school, if said missionary society shall have conducted said school and farm in a manner acceptable to the Board of Visitors during said 10 years, the U.S. will convey to said society the land before mentioned by patent in trust for the benefit of said Indians. In case said missionary society shall fail to accept the trust herein named within 1 year after the ratification of this treaty, then and in that case, the said $20,000 shall be placed to the credit of the educational fund of said Indians to be expended for their benefit in such manner as the Secretary of Interior may deem advisable. It is understood and agreed that said missionary society may use the schoolhouse now standing upon land adjacent to the land hereinbefore set apart for a school farm where it now stands, or move it upon the land so set apart. Article 5. The said Indians agree that of the last two payments of $18,800 each provided for by the said Treaty of August 2nd, 1855, the sum of $17,600 may be withheld, and the same shall be placed to the credit of their agricultural fund, to be expended for their benefit in sustaining their blacksmith shop, in stock animals, agricultural implements, or in such other manner as the Secretary of Interior may deem advisable. Article 6. The Commissioner of Indian Affairs may, at the request of the chiefs and headmen, sell the mill and land belonging thereto at Isabella City on said reservation, and apply the proceeds therefor for such beneficiary objects as may be deemed advisable by the Secretary of Interior. Article 7. Inasmuch as the mill belonging to said Indians is partly located upon land heretofore selected by James Nicholson, it is hereby agreed that upon a relinquishment of 10 acres of said land by said Nicholson in such form as may be determined by the agent for said Indians, he, the said Nicholson, shall be entitled to select 80 acres of land, subject to the approval of the Secretary of Interior, and to receive a patent therefor in fee simple. Article 8. It is hereby expressly understood that the 8th article of the Treaty of August 2nd, 1855, shall in no wise be affected by the terms of this treaty. In testimony whereof, the said H.J. Alvord and the said D.C. Leach Commissioners as aforesaid, and the undersigned chiefs and headmen of the Chippewa, Saginaw, Swan Creek, and Black River have hereto set their hands and seals at Isabella in the state of Michigan the day and year first above written. H.J. Alvord, D.C. Leach, Special Commissioners, in the presence of Richard M. Smith, Charles H. Rodd, U.S. Interpreter, George Bradley, S.D. Simmons, Chief His Ex Mark, Lyman Bennett, Headman His Ex Mark, Jonathan Pemiquong, Chief His Ex Mark, William Smith, Headman His Ex Mark, Nakachikami, Chief His Ex Mark, Misquawanatwa, Headman His Ex Mark, Thomas Dutton, Chief His Ex Mark, Pim Wei Widung, Headman His Ex Mark, Elliot Kebe, Chief Ex Mark, Solomon Odawa, Headman, Physics Mark. Andrew Osawawaban, Chief Physics Mark. Thomas Wendo Nawak, Headman, Physics Mark. Natawe, Chief Physics Mark. Ikechi Noting, Headman, Physics Mark. William Smith, Chief Physics Mark. Naganeve Wedung, Headman, Physics Mark. Nawekejik, Chief Physics Mark. Ayak, Headman, Physics Mark. Nea Betung, Chief Physics Mark. Joseph Wabekajik, Headman, Physics Mark. Samuel Meshha Naam, Chief Physics Mark. John P. Williams, Headman, Physics Mark. L. Peba Wameshi, Chief Physics Mark. Nega Nekwaam, Headman, Physics Mark. David Fisher, Chief Physics Mark. Wabe Manadu, Headman, Physics Mark. Nibi Ne A Na Watwebi, Chief Physics Mark. K.O. Gwa Nebi, Headman, Physics Mark. In the presence of Richard M. Smith, Charles H. Rod, U.S. Interpreter, Amos F. Albright, Superintendent Mills, Marcus Grinnell, U.S. Blacksmith, M.D. Barras, F.C. Babbitt, George Bradley.